Donald Trump walks into CIA headquarters without warning. What happens next shocks the entire nation. Everyone thought it was a stunt, but no one was prepared for what came after. Donald Trump's SUV rolled up to the gates of CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, like a scene out of a thriller. Security was on high alert, thinking this was some kind of joke or a last-minute publicity stunt. But Trump didn't act like a man with a big announcement. He wasn't waving to cameras or shaking hands. He just walked through the front gate like he owned the place. At first, no one took him seriously. He was the former president, sure, but this was the CIA, a place that didn't usually entertain visitors without a very good reason. Security called in the higher-ups, expecting them to handle what they assumed was a prank. But Trump wasn't smiling. He wasn't even acting like himself. No, this was different. He was serious, and it was clear he was here for more than a photo op. The CIA's director, James Callahan, was the first to take the call. A man known for his calm demeanor, Callahan listened to the details. A former president just waltzed into the agency. No appointment, no advance notice. It was unheard of. But as soon as the call ended, Callahan's face turned grave. He ordered his staff to clear the area. He needed to speak to Trump. Walking into the lobby, Callahan was met with a wall of questions from the agents. Is this a security breach? What if he's here to stir up trouble? But the CIA director didn't answer. Instead, he just marched straight toward the elevator that led to the heart of the building. Trump was waiting in the conference room alone. No Secret Service agents, no entourage. Just Trump. Director Callahan, Trump said, not even standing up as Callahan entered. I need to talk to you, now. Callahan's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just some random visit. There was something more. Trump wasn't acting like a former president. This was different. I need you to listen carefully, Trump continued. I've got information, and it's about your agency. The room felt 10 times smaller. Trump wasn't smiling. His tone was flat but intense. Callahan knew right then that this was no stunt. Trump wasn't here to waste anyone's time. Just as Callahan opened his mouth to ask what was going on, Trump dropped the first bombshell. I need to speak with your highest-ranking officials. Immediately. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Callahan didn't waste any time. He quickly placed a call to the White House and the FBI, but no one could give him a clear answer. Trump's demand was unprecedented. The former president wanted direct access to some of the CIA's most classified intelligence, and no one had the faintest idea why. Are you sure this isn't some kind of stunt? The White House advisor asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. But there was something in Callahan's tone that told them all this was far from a joke. Inside the CIA conference room, Trump sat back, his expression unreadable, waiting for Callahan to return. The silence stretched between them like a thick fog. What could Trump possibly want? The world was watching, and the pressure was mounting. Callahan knew that the moment he stepped into that room, things could spiral out of control. As he entered, Trump didn't waste a second. I know about the operation, he said bluntly. Callahan froze. Operation? What operation? Trump's voice dropped lower, the seriousness of his words almost alarming. I've got intel from sources overseas. Your people, they're about to make a huge mistake. The CIA director's stomach twisted. Trump wasn't just making noise. He was talking about a real security operation, one that had been top secret until now. Do you have evidence? Callahan asked carefully, trying to regain his composure. Trump paused, the weight of his words heavy in the air. I've seen the reports. You're all about to open a door you won't be able to close. And trust me, I know doors like that. Callahan's mind raced. This wasn't just speculation. Trump was talking about an actual event, a covert mission that was underway, one that involved national security, and it was clear that Trump knew more than anyone should have about it. But what could he know? Was he bluffing? Or had someone inside the agency leaked information to him? Either way, Callahan had to act. Where's the leak? Callahan asked, narrowing his eyes. Who told you? Trump shook his head, a grim look on his face. It's not that simple. The leak, it's not who you think. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Callahan's hand instinctively reached for his phone, but Trump motioned for him to hold back. He wasn't done. I'm not here to cause chaos. I'm here because what you're about to do, it could lead to a war. And I'm not the only one who knows about it. Trump's tone shifted. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Just then, Callahan's phone buzzed. It was an encrypted message from an anonymous source within the CIA. The text was simple but chilling. He's telling the truth. The operation is compromised. Callahan's heart dropped. This wasn't just about Trump being Trump. He was right. There was a serious problem, and it had already spiraled out of control. The clock was ticking, and Callahan had to make a choice. Should he trust Trump or push him out and deal with the fallout alone? Callahan stared at the message on his phone, his mind racing. The CIA had been monitoring an operation for months, one so classified that even most high-ranking officials didn't have access to the full details. It was supposed to be a secret that no one could ever get their hands on. But here was Trump, of all people, knowing more about it than anyone had anticipated. He set the phone down and turned to face the former president. "What do you want from us, Trump?" he asked, his voice steady but edged with frustration. "Why are you here? What is it that you think you know?" Trump leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You're about to make a catastrophic mistake. The operation you've been running, it's compromised. And if you don't pull the plug, you're going to regret it." The CIA director felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. Trump wasn't just rattling off generalities. He was speaking with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what was going on behind the scenes. "I need access to the classified files," Trump continued. "Not all of them, just the key ones. The ones that have been flagged. I'll know which ones to look at." Callahan hesitated. He had worked with presidents, foreign dignitaries, and high-level officials for years. But this was new territory. Trusting Trump with such sensitive information was a risky move. But something about his tone, something in the way he spoke, made Callahan reconsider. Was he bluffing, or was this the moment the CIA would have to put everything on the line? "I'm not going to give you access to those files," Callahan said firmly. "Not without proof. Not without knowing that you're not playing some game here." Trump didn't flinch. "I'm not here for games, Director. If I'm wrong, then fine. You've got me. But if I'm right and you don't listen to me, you're playing with fire." A tense silence filled the room. Trump was standing, his hands clasped behind his back, as though he was already walking away from whatever meeting this was supposed to be. Then unexpectedly, he dropped another bombshell. "I've got a source inside your agency. They've been feeding me information, and this is bigger than any of you realize." Callahan's mind went blank. A mole? Within the CIA? This was something out of a spy novel. The idea that someone inside the agency was leaking information to Trump, and that it was happening right under their noses, sent a shockwave of panic through Callahan's chest. Before he could respond, there was another knock at the door. This time, the agent outside wasn't just delivering a message. The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. "Director, you need to see this," the agent said, holding up a tablet. On it was a live feed of an overseas operation, the same one Trump had been warning about. But what Callahan saw made his blood run cold. There, on the screen, was the operation in full swing. Except it was all going wrong. The team had been compromised, and the situation was spiraling out of control. Callahan looked back at Trump, his mind whirling. Trump wasn't just talking. He had known about this operation before anyone else. The question now was, how? "Okay," Callahan said slowly, the decision weighing heavy on his shoulders. "You've got access, but you're going to explain yourself. All of it. Every single detail. Now." Trump didn't smile. He just nodded, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "The clock is ticking, Director," Trump warned. "You don't have much time." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Callahan sat at the desk, staring at the classified intel Trump had requested. The team had scrambled to pull up every file related to the operation. Everything was on the table now. But even as they sifted through pages of documents, a chilling realization sank in. Trump was right. The operation was compromised, and the leak was deeper than anyone had anticipated. Trump sat quietly, his eyes scanning over the papers, unmoving. He didn't seem surprised. In fact, it was almost as though he was expecting everything to be exactly as it was. Callahan couldn't shake the feeling that Trump knew more than he was letting on. Then, without warning, Trump pointed to a section of the file. "This," he said, his voice low but commanding, "this is the problem." Callahan leaned in, his eyes narrowing as he followed Trump's finger to a set of coordinates. The location wasn't just a random drop on the map. It was the exact place where the operation was scheduled to unfold in just a few hours. A location that was, until now, off limits to most CIA operatives. "Whoever's been feeding you this information has had access to everything," Callahan muttered. "But these coordinates, this is where things are about to go wrong, isn't it?" Trump didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the map, his jaw tight. Finally, he spoke. "You've got a mole in your ranks. They've been feeding me intel on this mission for months, but I'm not the only one who knows about it." Callahan's stomach twisted again. The mole wasn't just a small leak. It was someone who had infiltrated the highest levels of the agency, someone who had access to mission-critical information. It was a nightmare scenario. As Callahan processed the magnitude of what Trump was saying, another shocking twist unfolded. An agent burst into the room, breathless, holding a secure phone. "Director, it's urgent. We've just intercepted a communication. There's a breach in the operation. The target is compromised. Everything's gone south. We need to act fast, or this will become a disaster." Callahan's mind raced. The situation had escalated from bad to catastrophic. What was supposed to be a controlled mission was now teetering on the edge of an international crisis, and the clock was ticking. Trump didn't flinch. He was already on his feet, moving towards the door. "You can't fix this in time," he said, his voice colder now. "But I can." Callahan grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "What do you mean you can fix it?" Trump's eyes met his, unwavering. "I have an ally on the inside, someone who can help you shut this down before it all collapses." For a moment, the room was dead silent. Callahan was torn. He could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on him, but trusting Trump, a man with no official authority and only a cryptic set of promises, seemed like an impossible gamble. "You want me to trust you now?" Callahan spat. "After all this? After everything you've thrown at me? You're asking for the keys to the kingdom without even giving me a real explanation." Trump leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You don't have a choice. If you don't act now, you'll lose everything. And when the dust settles, you'll wish you had listened." With that, Trump turned and walked out of the room, leaving Callahan staring after him in stunned silence. There was only one thing Callahan knew for sure now. He didn't have much time left to make the right call. The clock was ticking. Callahan was still reeling from Trump's words. An ally? Inside the CIA? The idea was insane, but everything Trump had said so far had turned out to be true. The operation was falling apart. The mole was real, and the CIA's carefully planned mission was on the verge of collapse. Callahan's team was scrambling to gather intel, but no one knew where to start. The breach was too deep, too widespread. As they tried to piece together the fragments of the operation, Callahan found himself alone in his office, staring at the phone in front of him. Trump had walked out without another word, but Callahan couldn't shake the feeling that the former president knew something more, something that could stop the disaster from getting worse. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden knock at the door. One of his senior agents entered, holding a folder. "Director, you need to see this." The folder was filled with surveillance photos of a foreign national, someone who had been spotted on the same side as the CIA's target. It was the same individual Trump had mentioned earlier, but there was something off about the whole situation. This person wasn't just connected to the operation. They were connected to someone far more dangerous. "Who is this?" Callahan asked, scanning the documents. The agent hesitated before answering. "He's connected to a Russian intelligence asset, someone deep inside their government." Callahan froze. This wasn't just a mole. It was an international conspiracy. The CIA's operation had been compromised from the inside, and it was clear now that someone had orchestrated this entire mess. As if on cue, Callahan's phone buzzed. It was a secure message marked urgent. "Director, we've just intercepted a transmission. It's from Trump. He's been in contact with the Russian asset. We think he's making a deal." Callahan's blood ran cold. Was Trump working with the enemy? Had everything he said about the mole and the operation been a ploy? Or was he playing both sides, feeding the CIA just enough truth to make them panic? Director? The agent's voice cut through Callahan's thoughts. What do we do? Callahan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. We need to find out what Trump is up to. If he's making deals with foreign intelligence, we have a whole new set of problems. Before he could react, another agent burst in, his face pale. Director, you need to see this. The operation, it's been exposed. The target is on the move. We've lost contact with our team. Everything was spiraling out of control. Trump had warned them, and now they were in the thick of a crisis that had reached far beyond the CIA's walls. The situation was worse than anyone had predicted. And now, as the agency scrambled to track the target, the implications of everything Trump had said were starting to hit home. Callahan picked up the phone, dialing the White House for the second time that day. But the message that came through wasn't what he expected. The president has authorized you to cooperate fully with Trump. He's the only one who can stop this. Callahan's heart pounded as he looked at the message from the White House. This was it. The highest level of government had just given him the green light to work with Trump, a man who had just walked into CIA headquarters unannounced and uncovered a massive security breach. But now the stakes were higher than ever. Trump was their only hope. With no time to waste, Callahan rounded up his top team. They were going to follow Trump's lead, whether they liked it or not. The intel was clear now. The Russian asset was the key to everything. The operation had been set up to fail from the start, and someone within the CIA had been feeding information to the enemy. But who? As they raced against time to intercept the target, Trump reappeared in the briefing room, looking more determined than ever. He wasted no time with pleasantries, going straight to the point. You've got one shot at this, Trump said. If you don't move fast, everything's going to collapse. The Russians won't just back down, they'll take the fall for this, but only if you let them. Callahan was already working the phones, coordinating with agents overseas. But it was clear, Trump's instincts were on the money. The pieces were falling into place. The CIA scrambled its resources, deploying agents to key locations. And then, like a domino effect, everything clicked. They traced the movements of the foreign asset, cutting off escape routes and coordinating with military forces to close in on the target. But as the final moments unfolded, it became clear. The crisis Trump had warned about wasn't just narrowly averted. It was about to trigger a series of events that would change the course of global politics forever. The target was cornered, and just as the operation was coming to a close, Callahan realized something far more disturbing. The mole inside the CIA wasn't just a low-level operative. It was someone far more powerful than anyone had imagined. In the final moments, Trump turned to Callahan, a knowing look in his eyes. I told you, you had to listen to me. And with that, the curtain fell. The mission had been completed, but the mystery of the mole, the true depth of the conspiracy, and Trump's role in it all, remained unanswered. What had he really been after? Was he a hero or just playing a much deeper game than anyone had realized? As the dust settled, Callahan knew one thing for certain. Everything had changed, and no one, not even the CIA, could have predicted what came next.